Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Project Egg Show. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Melanie Moore, a big vision coach, the big vision coach. In fact, how are you today, Melanie?
I'm wonderful, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. The pleasure's all mine. Let's jump right in. What is your story?
Oh my gosh, where do we go? Right. Okay, let's go back 20 years. And I was at university and I was studying journalism. And my big vision back then was to work in TV, to have my own TV show, to really get into journalism. And I did it for a couple of years. I worked at the BBC and it was great. But I don't want to say bad things about BBC. It's a wonderful organisation, but as a graduate, it's not the best paid job. You work very long hours, and I didn't really feel committed to my journalism journey at that point in time, and I got a bit disillusioned with the industry, and I was working very long hours for as a graduate, for not an awful lot of money. So I decided to head for a corporate career, and I worked in sales and recruitment and headhunting for the next 10 years. So that led me down the corporate path, and it was fine. It was good. I then, got married and had children. But for a long time, I kind of think, what a waste of that journalism career. Why did I do that? And I felt that my life had went down another route. But obviously the children came along. Now my children are 14 and 11 now, so they're not so little these days. But I had a whole 10 years in the corporate world. Now, when my children were born, again, the vision for me really then was to stay at home and look after my children. And I really didn't want to be in this corporate career any longer. But equally, I thought I can't just, there's nothing wrong with just stay at home looking after children. I knew I needed something else to do as well. And I'd always been really interested in therapies. Helping people is something that I've done for years, before I could even call myself a coach. I think coaches are naturally born wanting to help people. So I've been coaching people for many, many years. But I had a love of alternative therapies. So I thought, okay, right, in order to stay at home, look after my children, I'm also going to become a therapist as well. And I moved into kind of Reiki, reflexology, and then moved into doing EFT tapping, and leading that then led into kind of workshops as well, because I've always been really hugely interested in personal development, personal growth books, Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer, all those kind of people. For years, I've loved reading those books. So my children were at home, and we can come back to this story in a minute. There was something rather fun that quite happened that enabled me to leave my corporate career, because I really believe it's all about setting the intention. What do I really want right now? This would be the one question I would always ask my clients, focus on what it is you want. So 10 years ago, I wanted to stay at home and be with my children. I wanted to start my own business, but I also knew that I needed the financial security to just leave my corporate career. So I'll tell you my first fun story, because I'm really into manifesting and the law of attraction as well. And I just read The Secret about 10 years ago. Are you into this as well, Ben?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'd read The Secret and I thought, I'll give this manifesting thing a go. And my focus was to I'd set the intention that I need £20,000 in order to feel comfortable enough to leave my corporate career, so I can, get a website set up, so I can start the thing, get business cards printed, and I can, it would feel like enough of a comfort blanket to leave my corporate career. So, so it's funny, I tell the story now and it makes me laugh every single time. Back then, the only way I could think to manifest a big chunk of money was to go on a game show. I didn't have an online business. I didn't think I could make money online. I didn't even know that making money online was a thing. So, of course, that was the only way I could see to make money. So when I was in my corporate career, I used to drive past the studios where Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was filmed um, every day, and I would visualize myself being on the show, and I would visualize myself winning money. And you know, now knowing what I know about visualization and manifesting, I was totally doing the work, but without even realizing. As far as I could see, it was I was just daydreaming, and I would feel it, I would sense it, I would see it, and I could just see myself there on the show. So, you can visualize all day long, but you've got to take some action. So I then looked into it. How do I apply to be on the show? Anyway, I'm going to cut a really long story short now. The long story is that I got on the show and I won £20,000. The exact amount of money that I told the universe is how much I need in order to leave my job. So it was just the first instance of, wow, oh my God, did I actually do that? And I didn't tell anybody that I consciously created and manifested that experience into my life. I didn't tell anyone. And then I did. That's how I started my business. I had that cash injection, and funnily enough, I got made redundant from my corporate career. So the universe heard that call anyway. I got laid off, and I was so happy. And I got a big financial settlement. Plus, I got the £20,000 win from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire as well. And that episode, actually, you can still find it on YouTube. It's hilarious. I love going back to watch it and showing my kids. It's very, very funny. So that takes us to 10 years ago now, and I'm going to fast forward quite a lot of this now. And I started, so I'm 10 years in business now, working for myself. First few years was working with clients one-to-one, coaching and seeing people for reflexology, Reiki. I moved into tapping, and as I said, I moved into hosting small workshops at home. So I'd literally invite all my clients and say, look, I'm doing this evening workshop, want to come around, make a vision board. We will, do some meditation, and it was very, very low key. I charged next to nothing, and that's what I continued to do for the next few years. My workshops grew bigger. I had bigger venues, and then I would say 5 years ago, I then set my intention. I remember it was New Year's Eve, 2014. We were just coming into 2015, and again, focus on what you want. How can I grow my business? How can I go from just having clients locally? I'm just outside London, Hertfordshire, might be able to tell by my accent. And I thought, how can I take my business global? Which was a big question then. I had no idea how it's going to happen. And I think that's what trips a lot of people up. We have a big vision. We want to go big, but we don't know how it's going to happen. We can't see a path. So therefore, we just stop ourselves. I couldn't see a path, but I just asked the question, how can I go global? And I don't know if you remember, Ben, but there was an app called Periscope. It launched, I think, in 2015, I think, pretty sure it's 2015. Anyway, it was that year I then downloaded this app, and I could literally broadcast to the world. And I started to do tapping broadcasts, and I grew quite a big following on Periscope, and it was so much fun. I absolutely love doing these Periscopes, and I still really had no idea where it was going to take me. And then I started working with a business coach who could, I started to learn about online marketing, and I literally started making offers, for people to work with me via Skype, and that's what I started to do. And then Facebook Live became a thing, and you could go live into a Facebook group. So it'd be like, okay, I'd gather people in a Facebook group, and I would teach what I taught in my workshops, but there were people from all over the world. And, just give them a PayPal button. You can take payments online, take money from people all over the world. Oh my gosh, this is just amazing. Now I'm going from literally working one-to-one to one-to-many. And the platform and the technologies, everything has just become easier, even enabling us to have this conversation. It's amazing how the world has opened up to business owners, where just a few years ago I couldn't have seen that I thought I had to work with my clients one-to-one in my home or in my clinic. This was didn't even exist. And it's just, there are so many possibilities out there now. It's just, focus on what you want, and the universe will deliver you a vessel for it to happen. So I'm just going to conclude, taking this back full circle again, that last year I launched my own talk show, Big Vision TV, and which is very soon going to be becoming a podcast. So ultimately, that big vision I had 20 years ago of having my own talk show has, in a full circle way, come about. So it wasn't wasted, the journalism. That vision, it was just 20 years in the making. And so sorry, that's a very long-winded answer to your question. I hope I've managed to include everything there.
I love long-winded answers, by the way, because that's just, that's what the whole show is about, is really, really digging into your story. So let's actually jump back into your childhood. What sort of family were you raised in?
An amazing family. And sometimes I want to say that, you hear people who have such terrible beginnings and, hardship and sadness and, really terrible starts in life. And honestly, that was not me at all. Parents who loved me, great family, very happy childhood. And so it was great. So it's a bit of a boring answer, really. However, saying that, I do believe that there are experiences that we all live through that shape us and can cause us issues, and sometimes very, very minor things that can haunt us 20, 30, 40 years down the track. And it's an interesting question. It was something I've been talking to my coaching group recently, that when I was 3 years old, my mum's actually from Thailand, and she'd been here about 10 years. She'd met my dad here in England, but all her family were in Thailand. So she was a little bit lonely, I think, and she didn't have the family support to help, because all her family were back in Thailand. And I had a cousin who came over from Thailand, who I loved and adored, and she kind of helped my mum look after me and my brother. And when my brother came along, my cousin actually said, why don't I take Melanie back to Thailand with me? She could be with her grandparents and her aunts and uncles, and, we'd take good care of her. So why doesn't she come spend a few months with us? So my mum said, okay, then. And that was my earliest memory, was being in Thailand, and I was with my aunt. And she actually, and I remember back in those days, Ben, you're probably a little bit young to remember, but there wasn't any kind of you couldn't even make international phone calls then, video calling. No one had mobile phones. It was literally, you had to make an appointment with an operator who would connect you to make a call. Oh God, it sounds like I'm living in the dark ages, but so this was where, we're going back 40 or so years now. And so it's very difficult. You couldn't just make a telephone call. So my aunt, again, do you remember cassettes before CDs? Yep. So I made a cassette recording, which then had to go in an envelope in the post for my mum to listen to my voice. And my aunt said, let's make a cassette recording and send it to your mum. And my earliest memory was just being really homesick and missing my mum and dad. And I just shared, I'm homesick, I want to go home. And I was crying on the tape. And it must have been heartbreaking for my mum to eventually listen to it. I don't even know if my aunt probably said, oh, come on, let's share something happy now. And when I was doing my EFT training, my tapping training, we were asked the same question, anybody got anything they want to release, let go of? And I raised my hand and said, yeah, I'd love to be a guinea pig. And I said, I've had a really happy childhood. I've got nothing, sad or anything. I said, however, this thing did happen to me when I was 3 years old. And I said, is there anything we can work on? And they said, oh, yeah, absolutely. So I went back and revisited that memory, and I couldn't believe the trauma and the sadness that my body had held on to for, at the time, it's like over 30 years, that I'd felt abandoned as a child, that was lost, and where's my mum? And I missed her so much. And I actually felt abandoned. That was the big thing that had come up for me. And I think for anyone listening, we all have incidents like that we hold on into our energy system. I really believe that, sometimes even stories where, your teacher may have said something and made an off the cuff remark, you're no good, or, oh, what a piece of rubbish. Did you really did any effort in that work? Or, teachers say things. And I remember being called clumsy several times as a child, by teachers. There may have been two or three instances where I tripped up, but it stuck with me that, I was known as clumsy. And very often we can keep that identity, and it can kind of keep us a bit stuck. And I then consciously had to, because actually, no, I'm not a clumsy person. It was a story that I allowed to become part of my reality. Another thing is, yeah, we all have different things that keep us stuck. Are you a messy person, or what habits do we have? Again, these just become stories that become part of us. So yeah, I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but yeah, in answer to your question, my childhood was very happy, but again, there were things that happened which I held on to a very long time. I had a fear of abandonment, fear of people, leaving me, people of fear of rejection. That's a big one that comes up for a lot of people as well. And I would say I pretty much work through those and become self-aware enough to see where the story started. And again, if we have things that we patterns that we live through, we find ourselves in the same situation over and over again. I ask my clients, when's the first time that happened? Can you trace that back? Because it's just been a pattern or a story that you've allowed to become part of your identity. And we can tell ourselves a new story at any time. We can reinvent ourselves, and we can take our lives into whatever direction we choose. But it just does take a level of self-awareness for us to be able to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I actually think this is a fascinating concept. So my question is, how do you know what that thing or those things are that you're holding on to? Like, it seems like there are so many different layers over so many different years that get built up. Like, you have an identity from when you're a childhood, from when you're a child in your childhood. You have an identity between you and your siblings, between you and your friends and your teachers and your grandparents and your parents. So it's like, it feels like there are all these different layers. How do you really identify where the pain points are, and then how do you alleviate those once you do identify them?
Do you know what? This is part of life's journey, and I wish I could say all the answers will just come to you in one hit. But it's a process that evolves over time. And I think the journey really begins when you are ready to kind of make changes in your life. When, some people will never get to that level of self-awareness because they will just get stuck in where they are in their life. They can't see that change is possible. They say, well, that's just my luck. That's just the way things are. And sadly, some people will never, ever get to the point of self-awareness where they'll do anything about it. They'll just say, this is what I'm stuck with. And and this is where the victim mentality comes in, where they would just blame their circumstance, blame the situation. And sadly, those people, I want to say, it sounds a bit mean when I say they can't be helped, but you can't help anyone who doesn't want to help themselves. And, this is a truth. And I can see it many times. There's so many times people in my life where I've wanted to go in and help them. I've wanted to fix things. I am a natural fixer. I want to shake people sometimes and say, my God, can't you just see it? And they cannot, they do not want to change. However, if you want to change, and if you want to have a new vision for your life, if you want to take your life in a completely different direction, then yes, it's a journey of self-awareness and self-discovery. You're going to come across people in your path who are going to, help you become more aware. You're going to get aha moments. Then often it may involve working with a coach or a mentor who helps you see things that you can't see yourself. I can identify people's stories just when they talk to me. Give me an hour of your time, talk to me, and I can identify things. And I will say, this is what I see. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, you're totally right. Or no, you're wrong. Or no, I can't do that because of this, because of that reason, and blame and the victimness all comes up again. So it is a journey. I'm discovering new things about myself all the time. And again, I work with my coaches and my mentors who very often see things in me that think, oh my gosh, yes, you're right. And it's that phrase, you can't see the wood for the trees. You're sometimes so close to your face, sometimes it's right under your nose and you can't see it. Sometimes you need an external pair of eyes to kind of to help you. But you know, we never stop growing, we never stop learning until the day we die. So I will always be reading a new book. I often think I'm still a beginner on this journey. There's still so much more to learn. There are still so many people to learn from. And yeah, so the self-awareness, it you again, it is new layers all the time. If you grow to new layers in your business and your life, was that saying new level, new devil? You'll get to a new amount of success or whatever, and then all of a sudden other blocks will come in, and your old subconscious mind will want to keep you safe and keep you in your comfort zone because it's safe, and then you do something to stretch yourself outside of that comfort zone, and then more blocks will come in. So yeah, it's a never-ending journey, but I do believe that if that desire to change and to move towards your big vision is there, then you are just going to keep learning, you're going to keep growing, you're going to keep getting aha moments, and it's an evolution of your character and your person.
When you were bringing up during that session where you brought up what happened when you were 3, had that been eating at you for a while, or when they asked the question, hey, does anybody want to talk about anything, did it just pop into your mind at that immediate moment?
The thing is, I don't believe in coincidences. Things happen for a reason, and I can honestly say I wasn't aware that this had been keeping me stuck, or that emotional trauma I'd been holding on to in my body. Because again, I really believe that emotional trauma, it it often manifests as disease as well. We have shocks, we have upsets, we have things that happen that literally stay in our energy system in our body. Usually it's things that we hold on to long term. I'll give you an example. Okay, so with that example, when I was 3, when I shared that story, I got really emotional. I was literally crying my eyes out, and I couldn't believe I'd been holding on to all that emotion since I was 3 years old, and it was literally bottling it down. Maybe I didn't want to release that sadness when I was 3, because what I was told was that I was a very happy, very lovable child, and I was always happy. I didn't have tantrums. I sounded like the perfect child, but maybe I'd been stuffing down that emotion. I desperately wanted to cry, but even now, I'm a people pleaser. I don't want to let people down. I don't want to upset them. And I think that's been part of my personality ever since I was a child. So maybe I didn't really show all the emotion that I had during that time. That I was 3 years old. I probably wasn't a part of all the conversations of, you're suddenly being shipped off to another country for 9 months. I was away without seeing my parents, parents who loved me and who missed me terribly. And I think that during the 9 months, I'd stuffed all that sadness and emotion down because I didn't want people to be upset to see me cry. So literally, I was thinking I was 35 years, 30, I was in my 30s when I'd had this session, and I literally just cried my eyes out. I was 3 years old all over again. And that emotional release had needed to happen, because who knows how that would have come out in other ways later on in my life. And that feeling of being abandoned, and actually it wasn't at all. When you look back on what the actual story was, I told you, my mom was just having a hard time with no help to help her with 2 children. She didn't have any family, and she wanted me to be with my grandparents, and she knew I'd be loved, and I was loved, and she just did what she needed to do at the time. So there was no like abandonment there at all. It was just, if the family were here in England, no doubt, she would have had more help, but she didn't have the help. So I can see the story for what it was now, and I don't have to then attach to that I have this fear of abandonment or stuff like that, because it's just not true.
As you then were growing up and you're in middle school, high school, who were you as a person? Like, what were the things that you valued at that time?
I would say I was a pretty normal teenager. I was quite studious. I wasn't a wild child. I was pretty kind of a bit boring, I guess. I was quite a good girl. I've always been a good girl. And and nice. I think that's the other thing that people always say to me, that, I'm a nice person, you're a good girl. But there's nothing wrong with that. And I'd rather be nice than yeah, I'm not particularly controversial. Yeah, so I wish I had more exciting things to tell you about my teenage years. I started dating my ex-husband when I was 16. So, we were young, we were childhood sweethearts. We didn't get married for another nearly over 10 years, actually. We didn't get married till 27. And we were together for, a good, we would get together a long time, but we were married about 10 years. And sadly, our relationship ended 3.5 years ago. So yeah, that's been another part of my journey as well, just transitioning from, being, a married, woman with children and, a regular, family, happy family home, and just transitioning into that. Yeah, I am a single parent now. And but that also coincided with me really growing my entrepreneurial wings as well. I never identified with being an entrepreneur. It's just something that happened. I have a vision, and the entrepreneur thing has just been part of that as well. Yeah.
What attracted you to journalism in the first place?
I think the thing about journalism is, having the tools and learning the skills to share a message, to learn to write effectively, to to spread a message out into the world. And I can see very clearly now that 20 years ago, I was a very different person to the person I am now. I wasn't spiritual. I wasn't into personal growth or anything like that, because my mum's always been quite spiritual, and she would talk about things like angels and spirit guides, and I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I was just not interested. But I know now that I do have a message that I want to share, and there are people I want to impact and help on a global level, and that actually having journalistic roots it's given me a great solid foundation. I've always been a good writer, and quite articulate, and oh my gosh, we were very meticulous about spelling and punctuation and grammar, and which is just perfect for what I'm doing now. And broadcasting as well. I always wanted to be a broadcaster, but back then it was just a small handful of people who rose to the top, who could become the broadcasters. And for me, I saw it as I'm right down here. I'm a researcher. I'm working right down the bottom rung of the ladder. In order to be a presenter, I don't know if I have what it takes to. And then you would have just been a figurehead for other people's information. For who knows what I could have become. Could have become an anchor woman on the news or whatever. But it's not my message. It's not my content. I think ultimately that would have really, I don't know, kept me unhappy, because now I can share whatever I want to share. There's no censor on what I want to, the content I want to deliver. Just like you on a podcast, it's your content. What a wonderful world we live in now, where we can share what we want when we want. We can press go live. We can go on YouTube. We can go on, Facebook Live or Periscope still, or whatever. So many channels open to us to share what we're passionate about.
As you moved into the corporate world, and I believe you said you were in sales and headhunting, what were some of those things that you learned, and how did that really shape your identity as an individual, a professional?
Sure, I learned about the corporate world. I learned about how the world works, and big businesses. I worked at, I was based on site at one of the big banks in the City of London. I really learned about, the corporate world, which doesn't particularly excite me. But again, it's just a level of awareness. I learned, office skills, how to use a computer. I learned about building relationships with people, and I learned that I actually wasn't very good at sales, but I was very good at relationship building. We did the Myers-Briggs thing, and they took me out of the sales force because I hated that. I hated being on the phone with people, but they knew that I was very good with building strategic, high-level relationships. And now, but actually, obviously having my own business, of course, if you don't sell, you haven't got a business. So now I'm actually thinking actually those sales skills I did learn, even though I hated it. And this is something that I've had to kind of work on, that, selling is spammy and sleazy. You're out to rip off people. And actually, it's not true. When you're selling to people, it's just a very high form of service. You're transforming people's lives. So, why wouldn't you want to transform people's lives? I learned, sales and marketing and how the corporate world works. And do you know what? And I'm very grateful because it paid very well. It gave me a good financial background.
When you were working with BBC, how did that impact your skills?
I loved being around the whole, the buzzy newsroom, being around journalists and the very fast-paced world. But equally now, I must admit, I don't like the manipulation that the media has over society. And I see it very clearly, TV programs, is it any coincidence? They're called programs. I believe they're programming us to be certain ways. People just watch TV, 12, 14 hours a day. It's, there is no personal growth in the bulk of stuff you watch on the TV. Don't get me wrong, there's some great documentaries. I love, certain things on Netflix, but actually in my house, we don't really watch TV. So, I have got a bit of a mixed view of the media now. And whilst I was all about newspapers and journalism, I very rarely listen to I listen to the kind of the headlines so I've got an awareness of what's going on in the world, but I don't want to just fixate on all the bad things that are going on, because I think there are so many good things that are happening in the world, which, it's not very newsworthy, unfortunately. I think people like you and me, it's good to share more good stuff out there in the world. And there are so many channels to consume content now. Even my kids, they're on YouTube half the time. They don't watch TV. And that's great. You can watch what you want to watch. And if you want to, you can then become a creator of that content yourself.
When you were moving from the corporate world into being a mom, staying at home with your kids, what was the mindset shift for you, and how did you grow during that time?
So motherhood was really the beginning of my personal growth journey. I'd read a book called The Gentle Birth Method, which basically taught me how to visualize and to plan my perfect birth. So it's law of attraction, what kind of birth do you want? And before I'd read that book, I was just, you're never going to have to experience this, Ben, but my mum had me by cesarean, which is a very different type of birth and from a natural childbirth. And I thought, my mum had me by cesarean. I really don't like the idea of childbirth. I'm just going to do what my mum did. And anyway, this book came into my life. Again, no coincidences. It got me into yoga and meditation. And it got me to write out my birth plan. So writing out a birth plan is focusing on what you want. Again, we'll come back to that again. What do you want? So I thought, actually, I would love an easy, gentle birth, with minimal pain and trauma and stress. And whereas other people around me at the time, they're fixating on the horrors of childbirth. Oh, it's terrible. It's so painful. It's the worst thing ever. It's a horrendous experience. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I focus on, what if it could be a really good experience? So that's what I ended up having. I had 2 water births with very little pain relief. And I remember after both the births thinking, oh my God, it wasn't that bad. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't, a picnic. But from all the other accounts of my friends who were having children at the time, I had 2 wonderful experiences. and that's really what kind of got me started. Now, it was still a good couple of years before I went back and before I read The Secret and I started, you know, reading Wayne Dyer and, you know, then come across Tony Robbins, and it just started this spiral of, of, personal growth, and think actually you can create your life, you can set intentions, and you can choose the direction you want your life to go in. It is your choice. And the first taste I had of that was choosing the type of childbirth that I had. And it's exactly the same process, whether you're visualizing a great birth or whether you're visualizing, success in your business.
When you decided, okay, I'm all in on this personal development stuff, I think it's cool, I think it's going to work, and you really started to put forth effort towards improving yourself, how quickly did you start to see results?
It's I wish I could say yes, I made the decision and it's been fantastic ever since. But this then coincided with my marriage ending and a very painful time in my life. And yeah, some years of some quite financial difficulties. Um, but I never it's like having faith in something, and it's just trusting the process. That I knew that during some really dark times in my marriage, that I had this vision one day of being on stage, standing up and helping people. And even though it's just like, I didn't know how this was going to happen, I had this vision of standing on stage and inspiring people. Say, look, I was here once, living with, addictions and living with people who were, not committed to their own growth. And again, it's just like I was in a situation where I thought, oh my God, if only they would change, if only they could be on the same path as me, if only they could do this, then I would then everything would be great. I was putting everything on the other person, that if only they could change. And I spent many years trying to get others to change, but really the only person, as I said earlier, only person we have any control over is ourselves. You cannot get another person to change if they don't see it for themselves. So again, what did I focus on then? I focused on that I could be a successful single mother, I could be an abundant single mother, I could be financially free, that there was this whole like, oh my gosh, can I go it alone, can I make enough money to raise my kids, and all the while the fear, because it's very easy to focus on the fear and things going wrong, and human beings, it's very natural to focus on what we don't want, but it's a very subtle shift, but it's a huge shift when you can focus on what it is you do want. And I promise you that if you can focus on what you want rather than what you fear and all the things that could go wrong, it's life changing. It really is.
So when did the coaching really start? Was that before or after you became a single mother?
Me becoming a coach, or me getting so my coaching really started as a therapist. So it's before, it was, we're going back 10 years now, when I wanted to start my own business. And my children were, at the time, they were like one, and I was just going, I did go back to work after having my daughter, and it was literally, I'd spent a year back at work and thought, I can't do this now. Ben, my son's called Ben as well, he was just about to start school, and I thought, I want to be there to take him to school, I want to pick them up from school, I want to be there at sports days, and I want to be able to help out at school if I need to. And so when I started the reflexology, I'd say as soon as I started seeing clients one-to-one, that's when I'd say that's the coaching started. So we are almost 10 years now, and because I would want to talk my clients to talk their problems through. They wouldn't just come for therapy and that would be it. I'd give them so many strategies and, have you tried this? Have you tried that? So that's when it started. And then I moved into EFT, which is also known as tapping. And that's when I just focused on, the tapping, and it was helping people to transform their lives by overcoming limiting beliefs, to become more positive, to change their habits, and to help people think differently, because one of the things that I'm known for is language police. I will spot limiting language, and I would say, don't say that unless you want it to be true. Do not say it. Our words are so powerful. So I'm the language police. Now, I don't go as far as reading people's minds yet, but it starts with the thinking. The thoughts that you think then becomes the words that you speak. So yeah, I want people to monitor their thoughts, and you are in control of what you think, whether you believe it or not. Um, it's just choosing to think a different thought, and that different thought will result in a different feeling in your body, because we can think negative, round and round, thoughts that are just not, they're not healthy. But we don't realize that we're thinking these thoughts, that I'm bad, or I'm not good enough, or I don't have what it takes, or I'm so, I'm not as good as that person, I'm so dumb, or whatever. Monitor your thoughts. What are you thinking? That's why I'm a big fan of meditation. Meditation helps you to kind of get out of that. But also, what I love about tapping is that it's a pattern interrupter. You can literally go in and rewire your thinking and just get yourself thinking more positively. When you think more positively, you're going to speak more positively. You're going to do more positive things, because your thoughts then result in your actions, and it all begins with what you're thinking. So I'd really encourage, just try it on, try on for size, just start monitoring your thoughts. And it's like with any change in your life, it's difficult to begin with. Change can be hard, but it's just a practice. And then you start doing it day after day after day. And, then before you know it, it's just naturally, don't get me wrong, I'm a human being. I have bad days. There are some days when I wake up and I feel stuck or frustrated, or things aren't going my way. And I might allow myself a day or maybe two at the most, but I'm so aware that this is not me. What do I need to do differently to shift myself out of this? So I can honestly say that a bad day for me doesn't really go on for more than a couple of days. Sometimes I think, okay, do you know what? I am just going to binge on a Netflix series today, and I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm going to switch off. But then I will not allow myself to spiral day after day after day. That goes into weeks, that go into month. I'll have my pity party for a day or two, and then, okay, what do I need to do to make myself feel better? Do I need to ring a friend, a coach, or a mentor? Do I need to go out and get some exercise? Do I need to go and walk the dog? Do I need to just go and, put on my favorite music and dance? What can I do to make myself feel better? Because we can make vision boards, we can set goals, but ultimately the most important goal that we should have for ourselves is to feel good. That is the ultimate goal. You can have the big house, you can have the fancy car, you can have the success in your business, but if you're not happy and you're not feeling good, then none of that matters. Really, our goal is to feel good. And when you're feeling good, you're going to attract more good things, and good people are going to come into your life. You're going to attract, opportunities, and and it all starts with feeling good. And feeling good doesn't mean masking feeling bad. It doesn't mean, turning to alcohol or drugs, or, numbing out on food or TV. It's acknowledging, okay, I don't feel so good right now. How can I do to make myself feel better, to uplift myself? How can I, watch something motivational, inspirational, or an audio or something? There's so much content out there to make you feel better. If you're watching funny cat videos on YouTube, that makes you feel better, then, do it.
I think that's brilliant. All the different things that you said, and to everybody who's listening, I would highly encourage you to actually go back and listen to what Melanie's been saying, and go back and listen a couple times to really pick through all those gems, because there are a lot of them there, and I'm not even sure I got all of them yet. So, highly encourage y'all to go back and listen a couple times. So, Melanie, let's talk about what you're doing right now, because we've talked a lot about your past. But maybe you could take a few minutes to really brag on yourself. Like, what have you accomplished? What are you focusing on right now? And where are you in life?
So, yeah, thank you. I am a big vision coach, as you mentioned at the beginning, and because I really believe my gift, where I can help people the most, is to dream bigger, to have a bigger vision for their lives, and if they're not happy with where they are right now, that you have the power to change it. And because I really believe we all have a big vision, but for many of us, it's buried. We've forgotten what that big vision is. You probably had it as a child. You're probably an amazing artist, or you had a vision that you wanted to act or dance or sing, or that you were creative and you wanted to make things. You wanted to be an inventor, but your parents may have said, that's not a proper job. Go go to college, become a doctor, or go study law, or a proper job, go and get a 9 to 5 steady career. And, the dreams and the vision, they just kind of got chipped away. You know, Perhaps you've always wanted to write a book, or there's even people who've lived through hardship and bad times. I really think we've been given those testing times in life, so that we can then help other people. There's that saying that your test becomes your testimony, and your mess becomes your message. That we can help people by what we've lived through. And if you want to monetize that and make money out of that just by sharing your story and the experiences you've been through, then there are so many ways that people can live an abundant life. If you're good at sewing or cooking, you can monetize that and turn that into your passion, into or your hobby, to a career, to bigger things. Because I really believe that you've got to do what you love. And I say to my children, obviously they're my, I teach them, but they teach me as well, that I highly encourage them always to do what they love. And I'm not a big fan of tests and exams, and I will certainly not push them to go to college if that's not what they want to do. But my daughter says to me, I want to be a hairdresser. And I'll say, great, we're going to get you to hairdressing college. I want you to be the best hairdresser in the world. I want you to be the A-list #1 celebrity hairdresser to the stars. I want your name on shampoo bottles. And, I want you to be the best that you can be as a hairdresser. Because whatever you choose to do, even if you just want to walk dogs for a living, you can be the very best dog walker. One of my clients, she was actually really stuck. She was just turned 50 and she didn't know what she wanted to do. She was reasonably comfortable career-wise. And I must admit, it took me a while with her to kind of help her to get clear in her vision. And she realized she just wanted to travel the world. But I had another lady in my coaching program who, she was in Australia. My other client was here in the UK. And one day she just said, I just want to travel. Maybe I could house sit for people. The moment she spoke out loud what she really wanted to do, it sounded so silly. I want to be a house sitter. Other lady in my coaching group on the group, she goes, well, I'm going to the Netherlands for 3 months at Christmas. Do you want to come to Brisbane, to Australia, and house sit my house and look after my cats? She was like, oh my goodness, that is what I want to do. And now I see her. She's, she is now house sitting her way around the world. I think, who would have known that was even a job? Or, what a wonderful way to live. I just want to house sit and look after other people's animals while they're on holiday. And there are people out there who want what you have to offer. There are people out there who think, I want to go away for 3 weeks, but who's going to look after my dogs and my cats? Think, there we go. Let's call a professional pet sitter in. That's just a silly example, but this is what I do for people, that I help people unlock that big vision. So as I said, for a long time, I'm a big fan of vision boards. And I started off doing vision board workshops in my home 6-7 years ago. I'd invite a handful of people around, and I literally read a chapter in The Secret about making vision boards. I say, right, we'll have a whole bunch of magazines, pictures, just, make your vision boards. And that's as far as my teaching went. But I've realized the manifesting process is so much more complex than that now, that I get people to go through a whole process before I even let them near a piece of cardboard. you've got to let go of the old baggage, the old stories to, get to that point of being limitless. And then think, I'm going to ask you the question, what do you really want right now? Then again, I take people to my process of, to identifying their top 3 goals. And people sometimes say, oh, I don't know what I want. Okay, I'll ask the question then, what area is causing you the most pain in your life right now? It could be I'm not in a good shape physically or financially, or, I want to travel the world, or I want to start up my own business. So then it's just a question of getting clearer and clearer. So I basically, I put all my 10 years of personal development teaching into an online program. It's called Tapping Into Your Big Vision, where we use the power of tapping, energy work, and, and creating that compelling vision for yourself. And also the last step is then staying in alignment with that vision. So that is an online program. You can find that at melaniemoore.co.uk/big-vision. And I also, the other thing I do is I teach people tapping into abundance, really to get people to shift their mindset around money and attracting more abundance into their lives. And I have group coaching programs as well, where I work people, much more in depth, and do kind of a very limited amount of one-to-one work as well. But really what I love doing is just to inspire people for free through Big Vision TV, and the soon, Big Vision TV podcast is coming soon. Again, just want to provide as much inspirational content for free as possible, because again, that's how I got started with books and with audios, and even now I love listening to podcasts. And yeah, so there is lots of inspiration, to be had out there. So yeah, that's what I do.
Melanie, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I really do appreciate you sharing all of that. It really means a lot.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on and giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely. So I just have a few more questions for you, then
Sure.
we'll go ahead and wrap up.
Okay.
What is your philosophy on developing deep, meaningful, and genuine human connection?
I believe it's very intentional. Your vibe will attract your tribe. And, if you set the intention that I just want to connect with people who are, on the same wavelength as me. And again, I've got some amazing friendships and connections with people from all around the world. And you then just have to trust that, you will be connected with the people, that resonate with you. And it's incredible how people, can come into your life. It's that saying, misery loves company. If you're a miserable person who wants to whine and complain, then you're just going to attract those people. And, they can keep themselves to themselves. Thank you very much. But connections are everything, whether they're online connections, in-person connections. Yeah, it's really important. And there are so many ways to build connections now through, if you have a podcast or do Facebook Live, is finding a community. I think community is so important. Again, I have a free Facebook group. It's called Tapping Into Your Big Vision with Melanie Moore. So you can hunt that out online, very welcome to come and join my free Facebook community. And sometimes even something as simple as a Facebook group. You can form, like-minded connections, and it's a safe place to share ideas that, even people close to you might not necessarily be on board with. So yeah, I would just be intentional. Finding a soulmate, or you can manifest friends into your life. If you want deeper connections, again, it's just focusing on what do you want. I'd really love a mastermind group of people that I can share ideas with and interact with. It's, if you want it, you'll get it. And it's focusing on what you want. I would just keep coming back to that. Focus on what do you want? Focus on it and it will come.
We've touched on this a little bit, but I really wanted to ask outright. What is your greatest theory?
Oh, my greatest theory. My greatest theory is I really believe that we should be focusing on what we want without limits. Very often we kind of think, I know what I want, but it can't come because of this, because of that, because it feels selfish to ask for that. And I think what we want, yeah, it has to be for, a good purpose. You know, not, you don't want to, you can't want bad things for other people, but, what I always say is, for the highest good for you and for the highest good of everyone, to focus on what you want. And the second aspect is to feel good during the process, that you're feeling good while you're on the journey to getting what you want.
So again, Melanie, I want to thank you so much. Just two more questions for you, and then we'll wrap on up.
Sure.
Is there anything about yourself that you think is an important part of who you are that I did not ask you about today? In other words, what did I miss?
Do you know, I think we've covered such a lot today. I no, I can't think of anything right now. Yeah, I think, it's just going back to, I really want people just to kind of monitor their thoughts, monitor their language. What are you speaking? And don't speak it unless you want it to be true for you. Speak and ask for the things that you want. I yeah, I'm what haven't you asked me? I sometimes, again, I've said I always come across as this nice person. I don't want to use the word boring. I don't think I'm boring, but I think that's something that I've had to kind of let go of from, like, yeah, was I a bit boring as a child? But no, that's definitely not my identity anymore. But there is a fun side of me as well. There is a silly side, and yeah, only a handful of people get to see that. But yeah, there's a very silly side of me as well that isn't all, I don't sit there and meditate under a tree every day. I'm a normal human being, and I like to go out and socialize, and yeah, I'm a mum, and I'm busy, and yeah, I have all the stresses that other parents out there in the world identify with. After this, I will then be picking up my kids from school, and then we've got ballet, we've got soccer practice. So yeah, I'm a soccer mum as well.
Soccer moms are awesome. My mom was totally a soccer mom too.
Oh, love it. Yeah.
So the last question for you today. I'm 24, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple different businesses, but this show is my greatest passion.
Mm-hmm.
What question should I be asking you that I just wouldn't think to ask?
Do you know what, Ben? 24. If you're doing what you're doing now at the age of 24, trust me, when you are in your 40s, you are going to be rocking it. You really are. I think you're doing everything amazingly as you're doing right now. I think you've done an amazing job. I honestly can't think of anything you could have done to improve this. Very professional. You should be very proud of yourself. And, I hope your parents are super proud as well.
Well, thank you very much, Melanie. And again, I really do appreciate your time. And of course, I appreciate the kind words that you just said. So thank you very much. And to everybody who's listening, I want to thank y'all for watching and listening and supporting the show. Y'all are the best, and I love you guys. So thank you very much. And Melanie, you want to wrap us up?
Thank you for having me, Ben. Yeah, again, just focusing on your big vision. Where do you want to take this? You can take this as big and as high and as far as you want it to go. You've got it.
Alrighty then. Well, everybody, this has been another episode of the Project Egg Show, where we interview incredible entrepreneurs like Melanie here so that you can build your business, create your dream life, and we can all live in a better world together. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.